All right, so good morning, everyone. I'm not used to meeting in the mornings, so good morning to everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today and joining Ani and Karma. And we have some other folks that came from Vajra Vidya as well, Linda and Scott. So it's so nice to have all of our friends here. So thank you for coming today and partaking in this. Just a little bit of housekeeping at first here. The restrooms are located right outside that door. You'll have to walk by Ani's book stand to get to the door that goes to the bathrooms. See the connecting, it's all connected. And then also, there's a little Dana box at the back of the meditation hall. And Dana, for those of you that might be newer to the Buddhist practice, Dana is the practice of generosity. It's not about giving because you received something today. It's giving so that we can continue doing this, so that we can buy gas for Ani and Karma and everybody to get here. So if you don't, the Dana box is located back there. I will introduce Ani here in just a second, and as well as myself. But I thought perhaps we would take a few minutes to simply arrive and settle, allow our energies to recalibrate from the getting up and the going and the doing, and just arrive in the spirit of this gathering. So let's go ahead and begin with a conscious breath, breathing in deeply, filling the lungs completely. Holding that for just a minute, and then releasing slowly. And as you release, notice the body and how it responds to that, sinking a little more deeply into the chair, the cushion. Shoulders drop, the facial muscles release and relax. And we begin to arrive. There's one Native American tradition that talks about slowing down so that our spirit can catch up to us. And a second conscious breath, breathing in, filling the lungs completely, holding for a moment, and then releasing slowly, as if you were blowing through a small straw. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness. I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness, transcend the path of anxiety and sorrow to realize the true nature of who they are. Dougherty. I'm the director of Temple Buddhist Center. And for the past few, what's it been on? Maybe 6 or 7 months, 8 months or so, I have been so blessed to be cultivating and building a wonderful relationship with my dear friend Ani Lodro, who is the abbess of Vajra Vidya Monastery in Crestone, Colorado. And so the entire Sangha has begun cultivating this beautiful relationship with all of our friends at Crestone and with the monastery and the grounds. And so, as we continue to grow and build this relationship, we're so honored to be able to offer this time together with Ani. And I also want to point out also to Karma, Stephen Choying. Karma is his spiritual name. And so say hi, Karma, so they can see where you're at. He's going to be walking around with this microphone at some point, if you need it, so he can bring the mic to you, or you're welcome to simply walk up and utilize the microphone. Ani and I were talking the other night, and for the most part today it's let's just call it semi-formal. In other words, we both want to talk just briefly about these times that we are in, but we really wanted to make this an interaction. Okay, this really, we could just meditate for 90 minutes if you want, but if you have questions and things that are on your heart, that's really what we want to talk about. We could stand up here and wax all day. So what's important is to meet you where you're at, what's on your heart, what are your concerns, what are your questions, and then work with the Dharma through that. And so again, I'm very honored. I'm going to turn this over to Ani here. So I'm very honored to introduce Ani Lodro, the abbess of Vajra Vidya. She has a brand new book out. Did I mention that yet? She's got a new book out. And so with that, Ani, thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, everybody can hear me in the back? Sounds okay? Good. So, my name is Ani Lodro. I'm the director of the Vajra Vidya Monastery in Crestone, as Victor was saying. I started my monastic vocation about 30 some odd years ago, but I didn't start out in the Buddhist tradition. I started out as a Christian mystic. I started out by falling in love with Jesus and wanting to be a Catholic nun, and then finding books like St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila. And I felt very much that there was a love that was beyond the kind of human conditioned love that we experience in our world, and I was very interested in pursuing that. So that was kind of why I was called to being moving into mystical Christianity. And then from there, I met a Hindu teacher, Hindu yogini, and I moved in with her and lived with her for 19 years. And she was, in Hindu, there's about 4 major paths, and one of those paths is called the bhakti path, and it's a devotional path. And another one of those paths is called karma yoga, which is a service path. And those were my 2 paths, but mostly devotional. And again, it was this deep feeling in my heart. I wanted to be happy, and I wanted to be in love. And I had this deep love for much of the Hindu tradition and my teacher. And so I was part of her, at that time we kind of called it this inner circle kind of thing, and I ran her ministry and ran her retreat. What I did during that time was very much just stay in service all the time. From like the minute I got up to the minute I went to bed, I was serving. And we didn't get paid. So you were just completely volunteer. But I lived with my teacher, so I didn't really need much money. And sorry. So that went on for almost 2 decades. And then she was closing down her ashram, her ministry. And I moved to Colorado there was a series of dreams I had about the Dalai Lama that led me to Vajra Vidya, and I met my root guru there, Khenchen Trungpa Rinpoche. And when I met him, there was an experience of this kind of visceral, deep heart opening, I would call it. And I have memories of him in past lives, and just this deep, deep desire to be in his presence, to be with him. And there's things that happen that I think are just kind of fate or destiny. Like, at that time I wasn't even ordained. I wasn't even really a Buddhist. I was still kind of on my Hindu path. And the first time he met me, he said, it's fine, don't give up your Hindu path. It's a beautiful path. It's how you've been awakening. Keep that as part of your continued practice. And then he asked me to run the kitchen, and then he asked me to build houses for the center, and then he asked me to become director of the Vajra Monastery. And he has millions of students, so it was kind of a strange thing for me to be meeting this man who millions of thousands of people want to meet with him, and yet I don't even know him, and he doesn't seemingly know me, and he's meeting with me to go over how I'm going to run his center and be a part of his life. So all of these things, the reason I'm speaking about this is because in Buddhism, we hear about Buddhism, we hear about the teachings, we hear about the Four Noble Truths, but there's a level of Buddhism that I think is devotional, is about the heart, is about love, is about coming to the lineage, whatever lineage that might be for each of us, or coming onto the Buddhist path, and it kind of feels familiar. It kind of feels like, ooh, this is something that I've known before. This is a home that doesn't feel like any other home that I've had in this lifetime. And when we come into Buddhism, there is, as we kind of traverse along the path, there becomes this opening to understand a much bigger picture. What is going on beyond this earth plane that we're in? Buddhist cosmology is a very big topic, and students spend years studying Buddhist cosmology. And it's kind of the Buddhist framework of what's called this billion world system. And we come into having a connection with, in Buddhism we call them deities, in Christianity we call them angels or saints. But what we're talking about is what is beyond just this, and can we connect to whatever is beyond just this, whether we call them angels or deities or Hindu masters, it almost doesn't matter. There is a presence, there is a vaster continuum that we're on that extends beyond this lifetime in Buddhist view, and really all traditions actually. And part of what I was interested in Christianity, in Hindu, in Buddhism, was finding out more about that and making a connection with that. In Buddhism we talk about how every single being, not just humans, but every being, insects, animals, beings we actually don't see, formless beings, what we all want is to be happy. That's what we're all trying to do. Even people that we think aren't acting like they want to be happy, really deep down inside, what they want too is to be happy. And so much of Buddhism is pointing us in the direction of, what does that mean? What does it mean to be happy? And how do we attain that? How is that revealed to us? How do we become love, become happiness? So that, in a very, very small nutshell, I would say, is some of the directors or themes of Buddhism. I know that some people talk about Buddhism, especially when we look at the Four Noble Truths, as accepting the fact that there's suffering in life. But in my view, Buddhism is goes so much beyond the exploration of suffering. To understand suffering, I think, is important because it's so connected with happiness. Right? Many of us are right now on the planet in a state of suffering. It's just the isness of the times we're in. And so in Buddhism, we want to explore that. Why are we suffering individually, collectively? And how do I exit samsara, which is the world of suffering? What do I do? What is my personal growth? What is my spiritual growth that is going to have me move from this mindset or consciousness of unhappiness or suffering or complaining or things aren't right or struggle into this space of peace, self-love, and then having the confidence and the courage to extend love to others. And that's what so much of my teachings are really about, is looking at what is it that I need to understand and practice, what exercises, what practices are going to help me grow personally, and as important, if not more important, grow spiritually. So this talk that Victor and I were, how much did we do that?
We're here till 12.
Oh,
Well, yeah, it's a 10 till 11, so.
okay. I have my reading glasses on, so I can't actually see that, but I kind of can. So I just don't want to go over in case we have other things we want to do.
Well, this is great because this gives them time to formulate some questions if they didn't already have them. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next thing I want to move into is really the times we're in on the planet. And Liz and I talked about what type of workshop we wanted to do. What came up was, and in our congregation also in Crestone, right after the election, and not just the election, there's just a lot of things right now happening. We're just bombarded with bad news constantly from social media and our environment and newspapers, if those still exist, I don't know. But we're constantly hearing about things that are, in the mind view, going wrong. Right? And so in Buddhism, what we look at is the nature of mind, the view. What is our view when we say things are going wrong, things aren't right? What does that actually mean? What is it that is happening inside the processing of our mind to determine what is happening around us? And there's a lot of, we won't have time for it here, but there's a lot of what we call nature of mind teachings that point to why we think the way we do, why we want the things we want to try to make us happy. And it is also a Buddhist view that if we really understood the nature of our mind, no matter how much suffering is happening out in the world, we would exit samsara, suffering for ourselves. It doesn't close us off to what's happening for other people. And what I'm talking about is like levels of awakening, we call them awakening, or moving closer to the state of enlightenment, which is the point of traditions, to move us into the actual transcendence of a personal mind that looking at the world around us and looking at ourselves and being critical of all of it. And right now, the times we're in, we're tending to be more negative than positive. There's something we call collective consciousness. And we have our individual consciousness, the way we feel as an individual. Then we have our family consciousness, our families of origin, which there's a certain kind of what becomes more like a collective consciousness. The views that we take on from our families or that we grow up with. And so much of our conditioning and our education and our growth is wrapped around wanting to be a part humans are very social creatures. We want to be accepted. We want to be loved. It's probably feeling loved, being loved, feeling like we are part of this larger world that's going on around us is the biggest motivation, actually, for much of what we do. We're trying to be happy. And we see that being in family, being with friends, being in a social context of harmony will make us happy. We understand that, so we're always trying to move to that. But there's another aspect of that as well, which is the personal mind. We each have a personal mind that assesses the world around us and makes judgments about the world around us. For whatever reason, our planet right now, again, different countries have different collective consciousnesses, but overall, this planetary consciousness tends to be more negative. The mind collectively has moved into a space where we're constantly seeing and thinking about and worrying about what's wrong. We see that there's a lot of things that we don't like. In Buddhism, the reasons why we're not enlightened is because we have desires and cravings, things we cling to. And there's an aspect of our mind where we believe if I want to be happy and if I have these things, I will be happy. So then we go about trying to attain the things we think will make us happy. And we push away the things that we think will cause us pain or unhappiness. So most of us, particularly people that are not on a spiritual path, I think that's fair to say, move through life pursuing things that we think we want, right? Things we think we desire, because in our mind we're thinking, if I have this thing, whatever it may be, a house, a car, a relationship, the list goes on and on, a haircut, a hairstyle, certain clothes, I mean, the list is endless. I'm going to have this result. And this result will create happiness. And that's where suffering starts. It starts in the belief that if I attain whatever this thing is, it's going to give me what I want, and then I will have the life I want, and I will be happy. In Buddhism, that whole way of thinking actually needs to collapse. We're looking at nature of mind trainings, which is so much a part of Buddhism. In Buddhism, there's kind of two wings to the bird of Buddhism. One is devotion, cultivation of compassion, and love and kindness. And the other is knowledge, nature of mind, understanding how our mind works. And we really do need both. Some teachers say that we can move towards enlightenment with just devotion alone. Because if we cultivate love, that love that we're cultivating overrides the negative mind. It tells us that we're okay. It introduces a deep sense of confidence and self-love. And that conquers kind of the negative mind. But there is also nature of mind teachings. And those are very important in my view, and according to Buddhist view as well, to kind of understand what it is we're doing and going into this idea or theme of what is it I'm pursuing and why am I pursuing this thing? What do I think I'm going to get from this thing? Because for most of us, what we're pursuing when we actually get it doesn't give us the result we expected. So then we drop that thing and we go after the next thing. And that's the perpetuation of samsara. That's exactly what samsara is. Moving from one thing to the next thing to the next thing in this constant pursuit of what's going to fulfill us. Really what we're looking for is self-love, is love itself. That's really what we're looking for. But right now in our societies, we're very confused in Buddhist view. This is how we look at it. We're very confused about what will fulfill us. So we are continuously kind of raping the planet, all right? Building things, creating things, selling things, merchandising things. We're victims of an overwhelming capitalist view, where we're told, you need this thing, and then when you get this thing, you need this thing. So not only we're conditioned and educated to believe we have to keep moving from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, but we're also always being bombarded with stimulus and information that is enforcing that, or reinforcing that. So in Buddhist view, we want to break away from all of that. And the one way we do it is to start to understand that our mind will just keep on doing that forever. Our mind will just, thoughts that are arising, these conditioned thoughts, will just keep on going on and on perpetually telling us what we need next. And we can spend our whole life, and many people do, in this way, which does not get us to the point we will ever really feel fulfilled, awake, enlightened. And then our life will end in Buddhist view, reincarnation. So whatever we're seeking at the end of our life is what we're seeking actually when our body drops. And that takes us into our next lifetime. And that's a very kind of advanced teaching going to the Vajras. We're not going to do that here. But it's just a little bit to illustrate this kind of hamster wheel that many of us are on. And in Buddhism, the teachings are given, the trainings, meditation is an exercise that collapses the activity that we're doing that is wrapped around what we think our life is about. And it directs us to a place where we start to discover what is beyond just my personal thought or my personal craving or my personal desires, and what happens if I stop being attached to the things that I'm attached to. And that's really where we look at awakening as coming to fruition. That's really where awakening starts to flourish, in starting to drop our attachments. We also live in a society where we're just, at this point, constantly distracted. And we really can't meditate unless we turn our phones off. Right? And I've been doing research on just the practicalities, on the aspects of what current society, what our social media and everything that's going on has really done to us as a humanity. And one of the things I've been finding out is like people like in Karma's age group, Karma's 32, right? Very few people in his age group, and younger, it's even more true for, have ever read an entire book, which is kind of shocking. I was like shocked when I saw the research on this. We are teaching our children to continuously be distracted, to not even be able to cultivate the focus to read a book. And there's teachers that are in colleges that are reporting that they have students coming up to them because they, in college, are given a book to read, and they're telling their professors, I've never read a whole book, I can't do it. And so that's, I think, a reflection of where we are in our progression, in our evolution as a species. And right now, especially in the way Buddhism is moving into the West, teachings are being developed around the issues that we have as a society right now. And one of the major issues is that we have such a difficulty in being focused. It's easier for people of my age, and I'm 63, it's easier for people of my age to be focused than for younger people. Yet the Dalai Lama says that if we begin our children's education with some type of meditation incorporated, that there would be peace on earth by the time they grow up. So I'm raising a lot of pointers at where we are as a society. And the overview, from a Buddhist point of view, is that if we kind of understand nature of mind, if we can cultivate generosity and compassion and love, if we can understand why we're distracted so much and we come into more of a single focus, more of a disciplined mind, more of what we call taming of the mind, that allows us to reveal. What happens is it's revealed to us what's underneath all this busyness, which we call Buddha nature, or we can call Christ consciousness. Every tradition has different names for it. But essentially, it's the connection to something greater than ourselves. And the entire movement of Buddhism and most other traditions is to move beyond the personal self and our personal attachments and our personal desires to being connected with what transcends the personal mind. In Buddhism, we call that the collective mind, or wisdom mind. Some people call it love. Unconditional love is a transcendence of the human love that most of us know. It's a different type of love. There's nothing that we need to do to earn self-love or compassion. It's just here. It's our birthright. So a lot of people, in kind of the mixed up way we think about our attachments, are going after things to feel like they can deserve love. The traditions, Buddhism and others, teach that it's not something we need to deserve. It's given freely. Awakening is free. It's I think one of the biggest teachings of any tradition is to understand that love, compassion, self-love, confidence, to live without fear is actually our birthright. And so then we can look at our society, at our humanity, and see that that's not really what's happening for most people. Most people don't have a strong, particularly in the West, a strong sense of self-esteem. We don't really feel good about ourselves. And right now, there's a lot of teachers in Buddhism, Buddhist lamas, Buddhist teachers, that are looking at addressing that issue and how to address that issue. I've touched on a little bit, we don't have the time here, I've touched on a little bit of how that starts to happen, through understanding how our mind works and why it works, and also understanding that underlying this kind of personal craving and attachment is this amazing experience of Buddha nature or love, which will arise on its own if we can become a little bit more disciplined or single focused, letting go of the distractions and attachments in our lives. Our Buddha nature, the love, will arise naturally. And so much of the path is about taking away or clearing away obscurations that are blocking us from feeling our true nature. And then all the teachings that are in Buddhism revolve around being able to do just that. Particularly meditation, which is where most people start in Buddhism. Quieting the mind, allowing ourselves to have a little bit of stillness. Because in the stillness, Buddha nature naturally arises. So I think I should stop there, right? Because I've kind of gone over probably. Hope that all made sense.
Yes, very much. Thank you so much. It's heartfelt and it's touching. It's moving for me. And for my part, I'm just going to say a couple things, and then I want to open the floor up for all of us to have this discussion, including our folks joining us online. But for my part, I'm trying to bring awareness first to understanding that there are aspects of what's going on right now that as a white man, middle-aged white man in America, that I can't know. There are aspects of things going on that I simply have never had the experience. I cannot know it. I can be aware that, it's being talked about. And so I rely upon the Sangha to keep me informed, to help me to be more aware of those various aspects and concerns. And so what I'm basically pointing at is that as we move forward today, we're going to be talking a lot about our practice, our approach to what's going on, and the various intensity levels that various people are feeling and sensing during this time. But the practice, and this is what's so beautiful, and Ani and I were talking about this tonight, our practice really doesn't change. And that's what Ani was alluding to. Our practice, we were talking, or Annie mentions in her book even, that as practitioners, we are uniquely prepared for these times, for this amount of change. And so one of the things I wanted to say was that I struggle with judgment around it. In other words, this is good, this is bad. This person is going to help us, this person is going to hurt us. And it's really, it's truly, in my opinion, in my mind, as I work with this, it's not so much the good and the bad, it's just that there is a large amount of change happening right now. So there's a quantity, which is why we're here. Because, I spoke with one of my teachers, and I was ranting and railing about everything going on. He's like, what? You act like there hasn't been war, disease, power, corruption, famine ever happening on this planet. What are you, new? So on the one hand, there's this incredibly beautiful pragmatic approach, which is, this has always been going on, and we're going to continue doing what we've always done. Love people, help them, be of service. And then on the other side of that is members of the Sangha and the community coming to me who are genuinely afraid for their livelihood, their families. There was something I read not too long ago, and then I'm going to give us the format for our Q&A, but there was something I read not too long ago, and it goes like this. Wisdom says no one is suffering. Compassion says it hurts anyway. So that's this beautiful line that we're walking. And I believe as I talk with members of the Sangha, that's where we're at. People are struggling with, that line. And so I hope that we can talk about that today and clarify that and work with that as you guys share questions for us, for Ani. And so, as always, the power of Sangha. This is why Sangha is one of the three jewels. Our questions that we share with each other out loud, please do not worry. I mean, you always hear, those are a silly or a dumb question. And I know that is a platitude that's been often said, but especially in our practice, it's very true. Because as members of a community, of Sangha, of spiritual practitioners, when we ask a question, it's coming from our heart, and everybody else in the community knows that if they haven't already experienced that, and they're resonating with your question, they know that they will. If I haven't had that experience, I will eventually. And so your question now can be of great benefit to me in the future. So in the spirit of that sharing, of that wrestling with this beautiful human experience, all questions are welcome, all questions are worthy of having a voice. But please also understand that some of the questions, Ani or I may decide that we want to maybe have an individual discussion with you about that. So we might refer you to send me an email on that question. Let's talk about that more in depth, one-to-one. And others we will try to answer as best as we can here, or if there's something we don't know. So with that being said, we do have a little microphone. The microphone is for the benefit so everyone can hear your question, including all of our folks who are joining us at home. So if you don't mind, you can walk up and ask a question, or if for whatever reason you're not able to so easily leave your seat, or you'd rather just raise your hand, Karma, would you be so kind he'll bring the microphone to you. And so with that, I'm looking forward to our discussion. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's going on and what's happening in, yes, on one hand, the world, but maybe even more importantly, your heart. What's going on? How are you receiving all of this? That's the true, deeper practice. So with that, yeah, the floor is open. Again, thank you everyone for being here. And you can just walk right up or raise your hand if you'd like for Karma to bring you the mic. Oh, Karma, could you
This is
twist the little twisted little reins? Yeah.
This is just a statement. This is what happened to me when we were meditating yesterday.
Wait just a moment. Let's get this up and running.
It was working a moment ago. Isn't that? I can speak louder.
Okay.
So, when we were doing the meditation at the Zoom, this just popped out of nowhere into my brain. I've been wondering why the millionaires are giving so much money to Trump's inauguration. And what popped in my mind is they want to be there so they keep him from going off the rails. Mm-hmm. And so the other thing that then popped on was that as we meditate and Christians as we pray, those supplications are heard. And so we may not, this is my thought, I don't know.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of what you said?
As we meditate and as the Christian believes and as you pray, those are heard. And so we may not see the result of what's in there. So that gave me a lot of comfort, and had I not been meditating with you last night, that probably would have never happened.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Do you want to?
Well, no, I don't remember the question, but Lois, I really appreciate your comment. And to just the only thing that came up for me during I'm sorry, I don't know, but these were all working in a minute.
It's kind of like my guitar. It was tuned when I bought it. I don't know. So, but Lois, thank you for sharing that. And the one thing that comes up for me during her sharing was just something that Ani said last night, a little soft song about there are many teachers that believe that what's happening all around the world is not necessarily a bad thing. In other words, they're not saying it's not going to be painful. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And so one of the most tragic, horrible things that ever happened to me in my life put me on my spiritual path. So it turns out the one thing that I would not wish on anyone turned out to be one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. So in that same vein, what you were saying is that all possibilities exist. Why do we fall down onto one? So it's a beautiful thing. So thank you, Lois.
just add, I love what Victor just said, but I just want to also add, that is also my personal experience. That there, again, as I kind of alluded to in my talk, there's a much bigger picture going on. We are getting, this is my view, not everybody shares it, but my view is that we are getting enormous amount of help from places that we don't really know who they are, where they are, what realms are going on outside of this world. Most of us have no idea what's going on there. But in Buddhist cosmology, there's a whole structure, and there's a way to encounter these beings, and meet these beings, and work with these beings to do our purpose here on Earth. And so I think, Lois, that's what you're actually touching on. And that's one of the things that I personally have been very interested in my own life. It's like, I'm here. What is the point? What am I supposed to be doing? And so I think a lot of higher realm beings are working with us very closely. And if we knew that, if we can connect to that, it would make us feel safer. We're not in this alone. Yeah.
Very good. More questions, please.
So Victor knows something about the Enneagram, and he knows that 8s like to control things. So I'm taking the microphone. We have about 40 minutes left. I've got lots of questions. If I may, I want to say this, and I really, most people that know me well know that I absolutely believe this, and I mean this. I voted for Harris. But if you didn't vote for Harris, I love you and respect you just as much as all of my friends who are left-leaning. And I want to ask you to comment on something that Khenpo Jigme said this last time we all went out there. It was right after the election, and he said, when you identify with a party, so in other words, as a separate self and as a separate party, if you win, you suffer. If you lose, you suffer.
Right. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
We love you.
I want to hear your comments on that.
He's such an 8. Yeah. So the bottom line to that theme or that question is that if we have an opinion, we're suffering. That's really where it's going. In the awakening process, what we discover is that the way we think personally, part of that is, I'll say it another way. We're talking about craving and desire and pursuing things that we want to make us happy. But within that processing, there has to be some assessment, some opinion. This will make me happy. And what Buddhism is saying is, as soon as we go there, as soon as we make an assessment, as soon as we have an opinion, we've moved into suffering. That is samsara. Right? An awakened being, an enlightened being, actually does not have an opinion. They work with wisdom mind. Right? There is a moral compass, but there's no personal opinion. And it's in our personal assessment, a personal opinion, where kind of the fruition of that is conflict and war. So, Keith, is that a good answer for your question?
It's all good. I've learned so much from both you and Victor. I just wanted to hear your take on that, and we could probably spin it several different ways, right?
It's such a big question. It gets into the question of nature of mind. Why do we think the way we think? Why do we have opinions? We have opinions because of our conditioning. Somehow we absorbed somewhere in our life or a previous life that this was good and this was bad, and I want this, the good stuff, and I don't want the bad stuff. And everyone has a different take on that, which is why we have conflict and war and disharmony. So I'll stop there. Because,
When in this discussion that you two are having, one of the things that came up for me was Korean Zen master Song Su-nim. And this is a tremendous writing, but I can only remember the first paragraph of it, which is called the Faith Mind Verses. And the first paragraph is, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are absent, everything is clear and undisguised. But make the slightest distinction, opinions, then heaven and hell are set infinitely apart." So, again, these are teachings, nature of mind teachings, that we're pointing at, but we also recognize and understand that we're not all there yet, and so it still hurts. Oh, this is great, yeah, no preferences. Okay, got it, done, click, off we go. No one had any preferences. It's just not that easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. And so together we cultivate this, and together we work with this, and together we share with each other the teachings, and more importantly, what we're doing now, bear witness for each other. Where does it hurt? And all we have to do is be here for each other as we work through this stuff. So it was a wonderful talk. Thank you, Keith. I saw. Oh, hi, Dan.
Hello. I'm struggling to find a nice, succinct question, so I warn you. I hope to land my question. So in the, getting outside of suffering, part of that process is learning the nature of suffering.
yeah.
One of my concerns is much of our politics and our dealing with people and purchasing things have gone onto our phones and the internet, where we don't understand the nature of that. And so a lot of these opinions that we have are our phones and the internet hacking not our minds but our mammal brains, to glean our knee-jerk reactions and then sort us into two diametrically opposed algorithms.
Right.
And so in some ways, once we get in those algorithms, all the things flashing in front of our eyes to form our new opinions are coming from that algorithm. This is where I look for a question. I wonder how, I think that the Sangha and this sort of gathering is one way, but how do we get outside and see that we are in those algorithms, recognize them, and pull ourselves out?
How do we
maybe even personally, I'm looking at my phone, I can't control that the stuff coming to my phone is meets my
Right.
preconceived notions,
Right.
or knows my worries and can just tap right into my worries and then sell me something that I don't need based on my words.
Right. So we're constantly being manipulated by our phones, through the algorithms, everything that you're saying I completely agree with. And I think your question is, what do we do about that? Yeah. I think part of the answer, and I think Victor probably has a beautiful response to this also, so I'll be brief so I can let Victor speak. But I think exactly what you just said is part of how to remove ourselves from the manipulation of it, which is being aware of it. A lot of people aren't even aware of what you just said, that there is this algorithm that is very complex and very sophisticated and is creating an environment, creating a psychology to get us to lean in a certain way towards whatever, the origin of that algorithm, whatever that company wants us to do. And so to even just become aware of that creates space from the auto response or the the reaction that they're trying to get. I'll stop there because it is, again, it's a very big question. I want to hear what Victor has to say.
That's exactly what I was going to say. In our practice, at least my teacher used to say that awareness unties every knot that we have. Bringing that awareness, not that we're taking action on it, but just the awareness of it itself, right there, is such a humongous. Like you said, so many people are not even aware of what's going on, and what you said, of how they're being manipulated by all these things. And then, of course, here's what's fascinating, Ben, okay? Going in and looking at what's the fear. Is there a fear of being manipulated? Are you afraid that the television, the phone, your Alexa dot at home is listening to everything you say? You know? So if there's a fear there, that's where we start. That's where we start. Everything that you're saying could absolutely be true. It may not be true, or there might be some degree or version of truth between all of that and what comes up. Yeah, when you became aware that these algorithms are following my clicking habits and stuff like that, what comes up? If it's fear, then this is where our practice kicks in. And it will move you to purify and release this fear, whether that's throwing all the technology out the window or finding, what are those things, VPNs, those different programs that provide you with more privacy as a consumer. It will move you to some action. But most importantly is awareness of the response. You have an awareness of the external activity, which is technological manipulation. Is there a term for that? Maybe that's it. Marketing? They call that marketing. Technological, there's a term for that, it's called marketing. So you become aware of the external, now bring it home. And that's where our work starts. Good questions.
I'd like to go back to the opinion issue. Because I've been on this path a while, I understand frothing at the mouth generally doesn't help. I have to decide what's mine to do.
Right.
So when I decide where I want to put my energy, I think I need to know the difference between, is that a value as opposed to an opinion? What's the difference between I have values?
Right.
Are those, you would not call those opinions?
This gets into, this is how we traverse the path, right? By really exploring what is going on, and it's not all that black and white. However, I will say that one of the trainings that my Hindu teacher gave, actually, was when we have a thought that we want to follow about something we want to do, one thing to do is to check in and say, is this a personal agenda? Or is this something that I'm feeling called to do to benefit other people? And I don't know if that completely answers your question, because it is...
Intent.
Yeah, what is our intention? That's exactly what it comes down to. Intention is... In fact, in Buddhism, intention is so important that if we do something that creates harm for others, but our intention was to benefit others, right? It's better than doing something where others are benefited, but we didn't have that intention. That's how important it is. Intention is everything. Yeah. And I think it's easy to know, really, especially once we start, we've been on the path a while. Once we start really working with our mind in that way and doing inquiry, it's easy to know if this was a personal desire, more on the selfish side, or is this coming from compassion? Is this coming from an inner moral compass? And an inner moral compass is a very big teaching in Buddhism. In fact, that's why all this kind of discipline and cultivation of kindness and generosity and patience and all of these things are pointing to allowing ourselves to create the merit so that we have a stronger moral compass. So we have such a connection to this wisdom mind that that moral compass is always in place and there's no more confusion, which is awakening, which kind of gets back actually to Ben's question, because if we're awake, we're not being manipulated. Because manipulation through algorithms and all that is touching in on a personal reference. When we have a bigger value system, a moral compass, we're really thinking about benefiting other people. And the algorithms really don't touch into that, actually. It's more of an enlightened view. Algorithms work on a personal, selfish view. What do I want for myself? So, is that help? Yeah.
I can't know. That was wonderful.
Good morning. I wonder if you would speak a little bit on this experience I'm having. I'm referring now to the election as the great ejection. My phone kept typing it's ejection. Oh, that's exactly what happened. Yes, I got ejected. Comfortable viewpoint. So I've been, since then, in this moving in and out of these expanded states of awareness and being able to have this practice of being happy for no reason and finding these bliss states in meditation. And I'm having this experience of being both drawn to doing that and afraid of doing it at the same time.
Doing what? Being bliss?
Yes.
Okay.
Like drawn to being in my meditation practice, and so I've made the commitment to start my day and end my day this way. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and there are moments when it feels so good. I think, oh, I could just do this all day. Let's just do this all day and not do any of the other stuff and I have a thriving service practice and so it's cool because it's coming into my service practice, which is nice. And there's this, like, I'm just riding that space around, like, I know that I need to start with being the master of my own. You said it in a way that ended for me today. Being happiness, not feeling happy. Being the happiness as a state, as a practice. And just kind of like, because sometimes there's this little tiny fear in the back of my mind. We are not going to live in an ashram. We are not going to do that. We are not giving everything up. And then I'll be in these bliss states, and I'll think, let's just do everything else. So that sort of, I just want to name that and just see if you have anything to speak to about that, because you've clearly been in a very specific devotional path.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's my path, and the bliss is just so great, you know. So
Yeah, it is great. This is, again, all these questions are great, and these are big topics that a lot of masters and teachers have dedicated much of their life to answering these questions and working with people, because that comes up for all of us on the path. We start to become more happy, we start to become more blissed out, kind of. And then it becomes, ooh, I like this, right? So we're taking kind of our personal, mind, and we're applying it to our spiritual path at that point, right? Because then, I want this. As soon as we say, I want, right, we're moving. Our attention is moving. And that is what we're wanting to be aware of on the path. As soon as our attention starts going to, I want this, or I don't want this, let me push this away, it's a flag for us. So in that, I want bliss. It's wonderful. Obviously, you're traversing the path because it comes up after we've been on the path for a while. It doesn't come up right in the beginning. So that says something about your practice, that your practice is working. But what it also says is, okay, this is where it becomes a little bit more of a slippery slope. And so we want to be aware of that movement of our attention as it's becoming more and more subtle, because it can be a trap, right? Ideally, whatever is happening, whether it's bad or good, we're kind of a little bit hands off. Right? So we might be feeling bliss, but we're not moving towards it to grasp it. It's here. It's going to pass. And we know that. So we're just, actually, we become more and more witnesses or watchers to what's going on, and the feelings and the emotions and this display that's happening around us. It's really, if we, more esoteric teaching, we get into the point of it's all illusion. It doesn't mean it doesn't feel real and we should become apathetic. But we do start to have this direct experience of this as a display around us. And in that state of consciousness, it is much easier not to get engaged, not to get pulled back in. And ultimately, we want to transcend samsara and nirvana. And again, this becomes a very almost debated topic, because especially when we're in the beginning of the path, it's hard to understand why would I want to transcend bliss. But really, to get out of the good-bad polarity, we would want to transcend all of it, because there is something greater that we're trying to reach. So I would say you're in the perfect place, and it's wonderful, and you could just watch the bliss. It feels good, but you'll know when you're kind of trying to grasp onto it. You can let go. Does that help?
Yeah, and it's like also tracking on the opposite side of like the tiny little fears about what's the path going to ask of me.
Well, that's just the mind, right? It's a thought.
Okay. So just like when that's the aversion side versus the attachment side.
The mind is always going to have something to say about everything. And that's fair.
That's fair.
And most of us spend our life like just, listening to it and reacting to it. But on the path, as we awaken, we're just not interested in what the personal mind has to say so much, because it actually isn't benefiting us. Or it's certainly not benefiting other people. Right? So, I would say ignore it. There's a destiny here. There's something unfolding. The personal mind doesn't know about it. So it's not going to help. And you're fine. You're going to be fine. Yeah.
I love this wonderful question, Rima. Thank you for opening your heart and sharing that with us. And through the conversation, when Ani was talking about this transcending bliss as well as transcending suffering, one of the nature of mind teachings that really helped me at that point was when I was given the teaching that the disease of the mind is that it always wants things to be different than the way they are. And the beauty of that teaching was that it really solidified the witness, the observer. So I began watching, looking for that now, going, oh my God, totally always, it's too hot, too cold, too much politics, not enough politics. It's never satisfied. Always has something to say. So that teaching, all I'm doing is simply supporting everything Ani said was absolutely spot on, but sharing my personal experience with that is to really cultivate that observer and begin to see the nature of mind. And then what's interesting is at some point we kind of go from the primal scream to the cosmic laugh, where you're going, oh my God, it's been doing this for 45 years, and I've been believing it. And then you move into the cosmic laugh, and then coming back to, I think, what Lisa was mentioning a moment ago, then
there's this interesting thing that arises, which is just resonance and dissonance. I move along the path, and what resonates with me, I move towards, and what is dissonant for me, I move away from. I don't need a villain, I don't need a victim, I don't need a reason, I don't need to justify it to anyone. It's just what happens. And everything's okay. I move away from this, not because it's bad and it's wrong, simply because it's not resonating for me right now. And that flowing process of what we are, we're not a thing. we're a flow. And cultivating the observer, seeing how the nature of mind works, all of these things, eventually we cultivate this awareness of that flow, which then this awareness allows us to begin to embrace and participate in that flow. And that's when things become, well, easier, for lack of a better way to say it. So, wonderful question. Thank you. Thank you, Ani. I love your response.
So one of my identities is that I am an elected official for the Democratic Party in Johnson County, Kansas, which is a Republican-dominated county. Our group did thousands of hours to try to get our candidates elected, and we did a really good job. Harris won by 9 points in Johnson County, which is incredible. We elected the first Democratic sheriff. He's a man of color. First one in 100 years. We re-elected a openly gay person of color to our Congress, and yet our collective consciousness is apathetic now. You know, all of that work that we did, and look what happened. It didn't do any good. You know, so I think that we're feeling bordering on nihilism, like it doesn't matter, so why should we try?
Yeah.
How do we move from that state to equanimity so that we're ready to roll up our sleeves again and do the work that we've been called to do?
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to let you speak to it, but I just wanted to send out a hallelujah there. It's interesting. My consumer patterns have changed. Like the little shows and the pundits and the people that I used to watch, you know, holds nothing for me. I have no interest. It's that apathy has very much set in, and I don't want Ani to speak to this, but for me right now, in regards to that question, I feel like there's a timing issue. In other words, I think I'm still processing. I think I'm still actually grieving. So I'm giving that time. I don't know how much time it's going to take, but I feel that once that process has worked through, I'll continue doing what I've always done. You know, marched, sent checks, voted, volunteered for the things that are near and dear to my heart. But right now, I'm just, I need time. I need to process. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from on that. But please, Ani, share some more on that.
It's such a beautiful question. And first of all, just congratulate you. Because I hear what you're saying is like, okay, well, we didn't get the result that we wanted. But that kind of bypasses the good that you did. Right? And that's part of the problem with the way our minds are working these days. If we don't have to get the result that we were aiming for, we kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's an enormous change that is happening, maybe not in the way you thought from the results that you did have, but I would feel very confident to say you made a difference. And everything you did really matters. And, you know, I don't think it's any secret that I spend a lot of time in this space of kind of, I would call it maybe communion with hopefully a higher realm, right? That's a lot of where my vocation has pointed me to. And one of the things I've noticed is in higher realms and more advanced beings, they are working toward, definitely, evolution of humanity. But whatever happens, they immediately accept it and then move on. There isn't that kind of holding on to the expectation and then getting disappointed and then saying, what did I do wrong? None of that is going on. It's just, this is what happened, and now we're moving forward in this way. And they're constantly in a state of celebration. Because they are very much, and we are also, many of us are all on the path, are working towards evolutionary actions, progress, happiness for all of humanity, to take all sentient beings out of suffering. And just the fact that we're doing that, which is what your group is doing, is worthy of celebration every single day. So I would say celebrate what you did accomplish, which is so beautiful, and let the rest go, right? And maybe get together and talk about that as a group, to reframe it.
Thank you, Ani, and your response triggered a memory along this same topic, which was around my apartment building. I live in a little apartment building up the street here, and it's on a busy road, and there's always trash. And so I remember a moment, we could call it an insight or perhaps a grace, a moment where when I walk outside and I go to my car, I go across the street to the coffee shop, I'm always picking up trash. In fact, I take a little baggie with me now every time I walk out the door. And I remember at one point being, and then boom, this celebration showed up. The celebration of the joy of being a person that cares and a person that will bring a little baggie with him and pick up the trash. And then I started celebrating. I wasn't celebrating that, oh, I'm so glad you're throwing this out there. No, I was just celebrating that I can do this, and I have the sensibilities and the awareness that doing this is important to me. And then it became celebration, and everything changed. Complete.
Thank you, Liz.
So, Liz, never in my life would I thought any of that would have happened in Johnson County. Ever. Ever. So huge, and we'll keep going. You know, Victor, you've told me before, and I might slaughter this, so bear with me, but you told me, and I always think of it like something in algebra, which I can't believe I could think that way. But the path, and then you swing back and forth. So something's happening over here, and it swings you back to the path, and you keep coming back to the path. And that's how I look at everything now, thank you to you. Same thing with democracy, you know, and we're over here right now, and it's got to swing back at some point. And I have to believe that. You know, my dad always said, you know, never vote party, but he did, and he always said that's because your mother told me to, you know. But that's how I have to think. And in a lot of things, that things will swing back. And I always appreciated the fact you told me that, because I apply it to a lot of other things, and maybe that might help somebody else while you're trying to think how to get through it.
Yeah. Right.
Hopefully it'll swing.
Well, and Ani even mentioned the other day that there are many teachers, and perhaps even herself as well, that sees this time, this moment, as a call to...
Ani was mentioning last night that there are, herself as well as some other teachers see this time as a call to action. No, that's no one. Very simple.
I don't mean to be the science teacher to bring the enamel brain up again, but there are several pathways in the brain that motivate us. And so they also, at the end of a thing, they think about, they process what happened differently. So if we are motivated by stress, anxiety, fear of whatever, fear of those horrible people winning, that is coming from an older part of our brain that just knows one or the other. It's survival or death. And so when you get to the end of that, if you were chased by a lion and you live, you take a long nap. Your body just shuts down. If you are motivated by higher order thinking, by justice, by things of that nature, you do rely on that fact that things do sway. You see that as you go. My experience of this election, I started going to one algorithm then another. And it started, I asked myself, what does this one want me to worry about? Okay, what does this one want me to worry about? And I felt both of them. I felt the worry. And then put it down and got back to my meditation. Within meditation, we get into higher parts of our brains, and we are able to better think through things after a disappointment. So I would question, is it apathy now, or was it anxiety before? So you mentioned now you're feeling apathetic.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. I'm feeling, I haven't done a whole lot, but I'm not feeling the worry, and when the time comes, figuring out what those higher parts of my brain and that I can engage with it is the next thing.
Right on.
Sorry, I've had it twice. That's
Keith, did you know? I'm sorry, go right ahead and then Keith.
Okay, in Flat County, the Democrats were able to pass whatever in order to receive more money for homeless children and help them. And now I received an email the other day, and you said it raises us to do more. Well, the Republicans somehow want to stop that. They're figuring out a way that that's not okay. But, so I'm going to go, if they're having a forum or something, and it says, sign up as you walk in if you want to say something. And I decided, well, I'm going to go, and I'm going to talk from a teacher's point of view, and a therapist's point of view. And anybody who wants to talk to me later after this, okay. But I'm going to use my voice because more and more and more people, especially kids, need help. So, anyway.
Thank you. And Carmen, there's some folks who are on this side that would like the microphone. And so just while we're getting the microphone over here, our time is growing short. So I want to continue. And those of you that have questions that haven't gotten to ask them, we'll continue here for just a moment. But afterwards, our group is inviting everybody. I believe we're going to go over to the Cascade Hotel, which is on the other side of the plaza, kind of catty corner from where the old Chewy's used to be. And they have a giant food court there with 4 different restaurants and lots of places to sit and eat. So you're all invited. We're just going to go over there and get a little bite to eat. And also, we can probably, I know that some folks will need to leave at noon because we were scheduled till noon. But, we can try to get to a few more questions afterwards, especially if Victor stops talking. So, please, go ahead.
I have worked for Silent Unity for 21 years. 21 years. Worked
at Silent Unity, which is
I
a
pray with
prayer.
all who call for prayer. So before the election, I prayed for both parties. After the election, I prayed for both parties. And mostly my focus has always been in God we trust. And what I've learned through all the years of working there, listening to all the prayer requests, that our problems in our mind are our fears and our anxieties. Our mind wants to solve the problems, but the mind does not. It's in the stillness. And when somewhere along the line, when I began as a young mother and my kids were off, my daughters were off the wall crazy, I said, I want you just to stop and say, God is love 5 times, and ask yourself what you need to be doing. They would do that. And one time I was at a girlfriend's house and my daughter Vidya was just nuts. She says, Mom, I just really want to exercise. My friend said, oh, I have an exercise tape. I'll put it on. And then she was just totally happy. We were able to converse the way we wanted to. But just, and my daughter's now 50. And she says, I still use that, Mom. I asked if God is love 5 times. What do I need to be doing? And I listen in my heart for the answer.
Thank you for sharing that. So if there's a burning question, we certainly want to get to it. If not, Keith, did you have an announcement? Because I do want to do a closing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
So good to see so many familiar faces this morning. And I want to thank Ani and Victor for supporting me on this. I'm starting a meetup group. Some of you already know what meetup is. And so today's event was the very first event on the meetup group. There are only now 16 members. Vic is the 16th. He just joined. But I'm going to hand out these cards. Even if you're not sure what meetup is and you don't know what in the world I'm talking about, my number is on here. Feel free to text me or call me. But what this meetup will be about is people that are on the path who want to get more teachings, right? And so we will post events like this, and maybe other Buddhist teachers, even other teachers that may not be in the Buddhist tradition for a long time. It'll be mostly Western Buddhism. So I'd like to hand these out. Anybody that wants one, just raise your hand.
And also, Keith, you can just kind of leave them on the little Dana table at the back of the meditation hall. As I mentioned earlier, is a little Dana box. And so Keith can leave some extra cards there. The Dana is going to go to Ani and to Karma and the group to help them offset their expenses in coming to Kansas City. As soon as we close here in just a moment, and I'll sound the closing bell, please don't forget to stop by and talk to Ani for a moment about her new book that's coming out. Has come out. And so in closing, Lois has got 2 copies right there. That's right. You don't need just one. You need.
Mister, could I say one more thing?
Yeah.
On the back of the card are the words that you Google to find the meetup. I neglected to say that. There's a little sticker that has the words. If you just put those words into Google, you'll find the meetup.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Keith. And so I want to go ahead and formally, close this out. But one thing that comes to my mind as a perhaps a takeaway for us, Jack Cornfield has this great little question that he poses, which is, if you were to walk into a refugee camp, is it your fear that they need? Is it your frustration and anger that they need? And so it helps us for our hearts to open, and we just continue loving people, doing those things that we feel are important, whether it's volunteering or helping with the local election board, things like that. We do these things because our hearts move us to do that when we're in an open heart place, loving everyone, like what you were saying, praying for the perception of 2 sides. So bringing all of that in. So bring awareness to where you're coming from. Is it a place of love or is it a place of fear? And let that kind of be a guide, a compass, so to speak, for you. So let me go ahead and close us out. So let's go ahead and take a moment to breathe deeply, perhaps go within. And may the merit that has accrued from our being together today, may it be for the benefit of all beings, not one being left behind. And with the palms of our hands together in front of our hearts, as we go forth now from this place, may we enter each moment in innocence, guided by the wisdom of our hearts. And as we open our hands, open our eyes, shine our light into the world. Namaste. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, everyone, joining us on Facebook. Thank you, my friends. Don't forget, Ani is going to be speaking tomorrow at Temple Buddhist Center. Her talk is Love, Compassion, and Chaos. So again, thank you. Come and see us tomorrow, and you're welcome to join us at the Cascade Hotel. I believe it's called the Strangline Chef Collective is the name of the food court. I hope it's still there. I just sent everybody there. And so again, thank you. Peace and blessings as you go into your day.